Hello, EDSE 430 classmates and Dr. Beam. How are you? My name's Jacqueline. I am here with my Trifold project, so I will just get started with that. I may move the camera a little bit because it's at a weird angle and I don't know how to videotape, so bear with me. Alright, so for my original assignment, this is for a second grade classroom. It is a simple, boring worksheet because it doesn't matter how old you are or what grade you are in or what level you're at some point in your life in school you're going to have to do a worksheet. So it's just part of school. So the assignment is vertical 2-digit addition. The objective is to show mathematical comprehension of adding 2-digit numbers through showing work. Okay. My first exceptionality that I chose to focus on, I'll just leave it right there, is traumatic brain injury. So some of the characteristics included with traumatic brain injury, and this is not an exhaustive list, so there could be more, but some of the characteristics include, signs of brain injury can be very different depending on where the brain is injured and the severity. So there's a large spectrum of what traumatic brain injury can look like. Some typical signs include general difficulties with thinking, simply because the brain changes after injury, trouble with short and long-term memory, social, behavior, and emotional problems with usual mood swings, may get tired easily, and difficulty on concentration. So for my adapted assignment, I decided to, give more time to complete if necessary, in order to let the student rest if they need, because one of the signs of traumatic brain injury is they get tired easily and they get overwhelmed easily. So if they need to just take a break, I would let them take a break. And then give a folder with a space cut out so that the student only sees a small portion of the assignment at a time as to not to overwhelm them. Give step-by-step guided instructions and possible easier problems and less of them if appropriate. Work with student as he or she begins with an I do, you do, we do approach, which I also think would be good for any of these. So I would start out the student with an I do, you do, we do approach for a couple of problems, and then once I feel like they can get the hang of it, this folder here would make things less overwhelming. So it is a simple folder with a space cut out in which the student places the worksheet inside, and they move the flap down as needed, and that way for this assignment the student only sees 5 problems at a time opposed to 20. That would be very overwhelming for a child with traumatic brain injury, especially if they have trouble concentrating. So this adapted assignment would help the child concentrate a lot better, sorry about the shadow, because they only see a little bit at a time. And if they have mood swings, seeing a worksheet with 20 problems would be frustrating, I imagine. So again, this would help, them be in a better mood because they only see a little bit at a time. Work on 5 problems, you can do this. Take it slow, take your time, rest is needed. You got your 5 problems, okay, wonderful. Move on to the next 5 problems. Don't worry about anything else in the world. Okay, the next 5 problems. And before you know it, they will have completed a whole worksheet. So this just makes it a lot less overwhelming. So again, the rationale is that this meets the learning objective as the child is able to connect the math concepts in small chunks rather than a whole sheet of problems simultaneously. A child can still show work and be guided as needed by a teacher if they are still in need of help. So, that is the adaptation to traumatic injury. My second exceptionality I decided to cover is dyslexia. So some of the characteristics that could be included with dyslexia is that, it is a type of specific learning disability that is language-based. So individuals typically struggle with reading in particular, as well as spelling, writing, and pronouncing words. Individuals often have trouble speaking and expressing themselves clearly, which often instills feelings of poor self-image and discouragement at school. So the adapted assignment for this is, well, first of all, let me show this graph to you, which I thought was pretty interesting. So a student without dyslexia will typically look at the alphabet and see A, B, C, D, E, F, G, clear cut, nothing, no problems. And then a student with dyslexia over here would see a bunch of scrambled up letters. It would be very confusing and very discouraging. So the adapted assignment for this worksheet, I figured could be a simple whiteboard. And really, I should have turned this whiteboard around because on the other side it's just plain white. It doesn't have the lines. So I don't know why I did this, but just pretend it's a plain whiteboard. So instead of seeing a worksheet, again, with 20 problems, that would be very discouraging, they can take it one problem at a time, and they get to start out with a blank slate. And they can only, write what they need to, as they need to. So they can take it one problem at a time, opposed to 20 problems on a piece of paper at once. And as a teacher walking around the room, you can say, okay, I can see that Johnny understands this. He comprehends this. Instead of showing all the work on the piece of paper, I wouldn't even worry about that. I would just say, okay, they've got their whiteboard, they're doing their work, they've got it, and then just put the answer on the worksheet. And then, because the child has dyslexia and the numbers and everything get confusing, they can start again with a clean slate and do the next problem. So one problem at a time, and they can erase it, and it's a lot easier. So again, this adapted assignment gives student a whiteboard to do their work, which will give them plenty of room and allow them to just put the answer on the worksheet. This also lets the student start out work with a blank slate and erase as needed to decrease visual print. Allow for student to use multi-sensory assistance through math manipulatives if it will help allow more time to finish. I forgot to mention that. So another characteristic associated typically with dyslexia is that it's easier for them to comprehend things if they can use a multi-sensory approach. So I forgot to mention this, but an abacus, Legos, cubes, counting bears, whatever, if they can use their hands and their eyes to see it and the actual manipulatives, that also can help. And they've also got their whiteboard. So they got their whiteboard, they got their manipulatives if they need, if they don't need it, that's fine. It will help them understand a lot better. So in conclusion with this one, the rationale is that this meets the learning objective because student is able to have plenty of room to work on a blank whiteboard with no print, which often creates confusion and stress. Using math manipulatives give child a multisensory experience, which further lessens the stress of seeing just a piece of paper and print. Finally, giving more time reduces the stress of the experience as well. So really giving the child more time could be used for any of these. And that is dyslexia. Okay, my last but not least exceptionality in the classroom I decided to do was autism. So some of the characteristics associated with autism, and again this is not an exhaustive list, has difficulty with any change in routine, has difficulty understanding what is typical in regard to language, play, and other regular activities that others do, has trouble relating to others. It is a developmental disability that significantly affects nonverbal and verbal communication and social interaction. So when I was thinking about an adaptation for this, I know that it's common for a lot of kids that are on the spectrum to wear headphones because it cancels out noise and distraction and other sensory things that they may be dealing with. So when I was trying to think about something that they could do, I immediately thought of this program, and I knew about it because my kids do it, but it's called IXL, which is a great website that has so many different topics and levels for all kids in different grades that they can do. So really, I mean, you can find 2-digit addition you could find a worksheet on there. So using IXL is the adapted assignment. So you can give, well, for one, give the child their own personal quiet space so that they can focus without having to worry about social interactions. Give them verbal directions personally so that they know what to expect before starting. Allow them to do the assignment through IXL, a learning website for children. This will allow the student to wear headphones, which reduce outside noise and allow them to focus on the content alone. Further, they can hear instructions for the worksheet, and there are illustrations that show manipulatives which give a visual. So this is like an all-in-one. This would be great for any of these, but particularly for kids with autism because they're in their zone. They got their earphones, they don't have to worry about distractions, and everything is on that website. It's got the worksheet, so it's got the problems. It also has a speaker that gives instructions. So really he or she might not even need your help, really. You push on the speaker and the person tells you what it is you need to do. It also has visual manipulative, so it'll show cubes and things like how many and like add it together or whatever. So it's got the visual manipulatives, it's got the sound canceling earphones, it has auditory instructions. So it's kind of like all in one. It's awesome. So IXL for any student with autism. Rationale, again, it's this meets learning objective as the student is able to show understanding of math concepts using visual image on the IXL program, having the ability to listen to the directions through a headset, which blocks out other sounds so that they can focus and feel comfortable whilst working independently. So anywho, I don't know if you care, but there's a kid, he's doing his work, he's got his earphones, he's on the computer doing IXL. I mean, it's really great for kids to be independent as well. I mean, you barely even have to help them. Manipulatives, of course, are good for any of these children. Okay, I think that was it. I don't know if I need to show this, but I have references, sources. I can also send that if needed. So in conclusion, these three exceptionalities, traumatic brain injury, dyslexia, autism, these adaptations would be great for, of course, these specific exceptionalities, but really I think you could even mix and match because ultimately it depends on the student themselves. It depends on the disability. It depends on the severity. It depends on so many different factors. So, I mean, these would work. You could probably switch it up and it would still work. And hopefully, this would make for a lot happier time in the classroom for such children. And all right, that is my presentation. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, anything, please let me know. And I will see you later. Thank you very much. Goodbye and have a great day.